All right, everybody. Welcome. Happy New Year to all of you, obviously, here on the Hangout call, and to all of you guys in YouTube land. This is a Hangout, and this is something that we've implemented about a month ago, where on Monday mornings at 9 a.m. Pacific time, we kind of open up to the community to just jump on a Zoom. Well, this is a Google Meet call. I think at some point I will transition it over to Zoom. But for right now, we do Google Meet calls, and it's just kind of a cool way for us to get together, just at least in a live, broadcast format. And it's also a great way for me to kind of just tap into and get my finger on the pulse of where you guys are at, like what you're struggling with, what your triumphs are, what your goals are, because I want to make sure that anything that I'm putting out in terms of maybe YouTube videos or any of the content that we do with Sync Academy or any of the services we put together, I have to constantly make sure that I'm not drifting off into my own little lane. I'm really staying in touch with you guys. So it's really beneficial for me for sure. And also, I hope for you guys that are in Sync Academy participating in these chats get to kind of know each other a little bit better. And I wanted this to be able to be a way for us to create a little bit more of a sense of community on our platform. I definitely want to just enhance and build upon that. We have a great community, but I think it can be improved upon. Sync Up was obviously my big window into realizing that, like, building in-person relationships, if not, these kind of Google Meet, Hangout, Zoom calls, that's really where a lot of the value comes from. What we're doing here is creating a little bit more of a sense of community and network and friendship, because this business is about relationships. So I hope you guys are able to create those relationships as a result of these calls. So first thing I want to go over, is just a little bit of a recap over the video that I released this morning, which is about making your New Year's resolutions smaller. I definitely don't want to sound like I am raining on anybody's parade. If you have big, lofty goals, like you want to get accepted by a library, you want to make music every single day, you want to get better at mixing and mastering, I always encourage and I'm excited to hear people that are being ambitious and want to make big changes. However, the caution I will throw out there is that there is a realistic way to be able to achieve, I believe, large changes in your life and achieve those larger goals in a sustainable way that will basically turn into actually meaningful results. That you won't get excited about making music and sync licensing for 30 days or 60 days, and then March 1st you're kind of back to your usual self of not really making music, not opening up your DAW, watching too much TV, playing too many video games, right? So the whole point of that video is essentially to make your changes much smaller. So think about changing your life 1% today, and think about just something that you can stick with every single day. So one of the examples I'll give you was, if you want to make music every single day, like you've been one of those producers struggling with that this week you're excited, but next week you get distracted, and it's kind of this hot and cold relationship with being productive and staying consistent. Well, make your goal starting January 1st today, just turning on your DAW and hitting one note on your keyboard. And if you feel like making more music and you've got the time to do it, and keep going forward until you start hitting that wall. If you don't feel like making music, don't worry about it. Just literally hit, Command Q, quit, and get out of there, and mark it off as a win for the day. You did achieve your goal that day of turning on a DAW and making noise. It might not be music. It might not even be a beat. It certainly is not going to probably be a track in the beginning, and that's okay. But what you're trying to do is create a new habit. That's really all you're trying to do. You're not trying to go to the moon on day one. You're just trying to get in a habit of showing up every single day consistently and marking it off to say, I am consistently showing up and putting in some effort. And that's why I think the amount of effort you should be setting for yourself is literally 1%, opening it up, hitting a note, hitting quit if you need to. That's totally fine. What you're doing, though, is you're creating this daily habit, and you're also, more importantly, developing a new identity as somebody that shows up every single day, right? You really are trying to swap out the identity of, well, I get excited about music this week, and then I'm gone next week. And I'm excited about music for a month, and then I forgot about it for 6 months. That's been maybe your identity up until now. And what we want to do is start to swap that out for the producer that shows up every single day. Sometimes with a lot of effort, sometimes with very minimal effort. But it doesn't matter. It's all about consistency and showing up. Because what will happen as the next 30 days go by, you'll find that those sessions that you open up your DAW, hitting one note will not feel like enough. You'll go, you know what, I'm here. I might as well put together a kick drum pattern, or at least maybe a whole drum track. You know what, I'll put together a couple of riffs, a couple of chord progressions, a couple of ideas. I'll just go sample a bunch of samples, synth samples, and have them ready to go for the next time I want to open up my DAW. So you will just naturally get more and more creative and more productive and motivated by just showing up and not waiting, not sitting on the couch waiting to feel motivated to show up. just put yourself in a position to be motivated by being there in front of your DAW. So that's the long short of the summary of the video this morning. So I think that would be really helpful for you guys. So with that being said, for those of you that are here on the call, welcome. Good to see you guys. Deborah, I know you're new. I don't know if you've been with us before, but good to see you. How many of you guys do have a specific New Year's resolution set? If you do and you feel comfortable sharing it, feel free to jump on, unmute yourself, put yourself on camera, and share it with us. We'd love to hear it.
Well, I've got one. Oh, who wants to go?
Go ahead, Deborah.
Oh, mine is actually to produce more quality over quantity. I think last year was more about doing a lot of the quantity to get the album ready, pitch it. And I was definitely doing that a lot last year. And it worked. Like, I did get an album in there. So I think I've got that behind me to say, well, I did something and I've achieved something. So now my focus issue is going to be more on the quality of it. So take that little bit of extra time to get these albums that I'm working on at the moment, to get them absolutely perfect. But also and dealing with the am I taking too long? So dealing with the trying not to procrastinate about getting something finished, but making sure that it's a little bit you definitely all those I's are dotted and those T's are crossed and everything is just perfect. That's going to be my goal for this year.
Great goals. And I think that's really amazing that you have that kind of set for yourself. The one word that did stick out for me, though, is perfect, right? Waiting for your tracks to get perfect. And I would definitely just give you some pushback on that to remind you that there is no such thing as perfect. None of my tracks are perfect. None of Hans Zimmer's tracks are perfect, right? Perfect is, and it depends on your definition, I guess. But for me, perfection definitely is one of those words that might, because I could already hear that in your answer, that you are certainly, you're aware that you might get lost in that perfectionism where it's like you're spending too much time. It's not exactly the best thing you've ever done, so it's not ready to be submitted to a library. And that certainly gets us kind of stuck in the procrastination mode. So I've always tried to swap out perfection with licensable. And the only way that I know if something's licensable is if I'm comparing it to a reference track. So if I'm putting something together and it's for a particular opportunity or a particular library, I want to go to that library's catalog and listen to music like mine and just be as honest as I possibly can and say, is this really ready for them? And if the answer is yes, it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be on par, competitive, maybe even a step up from what they have there. So I would definitely just give you that encouragement to don't get in your own way by having this perfection kind of idea swirling around, because just remember that is an impossible standard that nobody ever meets. It's really just actually there to stop you from hitting bounce. So if you can kind of swap that word out with, is this licensable, or is this potentially useful, or is this essentially, and I know this might sound like it's demeaning, but is it good enough? Like, that's actually one of the things that I've definitely used in my career many times. It's like, it's not my favorite track. It's not the best thing I've ever done. But is it good enough to get the job done? And believe it or not, some of these videos I put on my YouTube channel, I'm showing you guys, that have earned me multiple thousands of dollars of royalties are not my favorite tracks. They're not the best one. Definitely not my best, I don't think, in my opinion. But the marketplace said, good enough, right? We like that. Or maybe they thought it was great. And that's cool. That's why it's all that perfection word just totally is, it's counterproductive. So keep it up with that. I think that's great. And the fact that you were aware of that it's basically the first step towards dealing with that. So I encourage you to keep going in that direction. That's really cool.
Cool.
Anybody else? New Year's resolutions? Or just general goals for the new year? I know one of you guys got something. Michael, you got something, right?
Well, I've been holding back just because I didn't want to go too early in this conversation, because I don't do New Year's resolutions at all. I stopped years ago.
Why is that?
I don't think it's the most effective way to think about things. A year is too long. I spend a lot of time thinking about intermediate goals, long enough to decide what they are, and then I spend most of my time thinking about the, sort of short term, what's right in front of me. So towards the end of this past year, I set the goal to finish 10 tracks within a certain amount of time. Once I decided that, I spent most of my time figuring out, okay, I want to get this one done by this Thursday and the next one done by the following Thursday. And oh, by the way, Tuesday is totally out because I have 6 things going on that day. So where am I going to, that's how I manage that stuff. And then from a day-to-day basis, I I try to keep in mind what Ernest Hemingway said, which is, quit while you're still in flow. He would write half a sentence and then leave it unfinished, so that there was no question about where he was starting the next day. I'll do similar things. I'll take notes. Tomorrow's the time to work on the short strings or whatever. And I'm also just kind of a maniac, so there's always something I'm going to want to do when my feet hit the floor in the morning. So that's kind of how I go about this stuff, whether it's music or other things. I don't want to make it sound, though, like I don't agree with what you said earlier. I agree with what you were saying about making things manageable and all that stuff. Fun fact, by the way, I knew of a personal trainer who thought that Valentine's Day was the day that the gyms started to thin out. And I can't tell. It seems like it might be true, but I've never really been able to prove it.
It's definitely within a couple of months, yeah. So that's really cool, man. I agree with you there. New Year's resolution is definitely not one that I usually go for either, mostly because it's like, why wait till then if you want to make a change? And I agree with you. But I think it's just sort of like the natural course of culture. A lot of people feel, it's New Year, it's fresh. And so I always think like, all right, go with that feeling, because a lot of times we kind of need a fake reason to start something new. So it's like, well, it's the new year, so let's do something new. So it's like, all right, great, let's go with that momentum, let's go with that energy, but let's not set ourselves up for too much failure, because I think you're right. Like a year is like, by the time you get 2 or 3, just the second, third month into the year, you kind of start to fade away from the energy. So whatever energy everybody's feeling right now with that motivation, that's going to be gone in about 30 days, 60 days. So then it's like, okay, so what carries you from then on? And for me, I guess it's like the tiny little change you made, if it, within 30 to 60 days, that could become a habit where it's no longer a conscious thought that you show up at your DAW every day. That's just something you do. And so you don't need motivation to keep doing it. It's kind of like you wake up, everybody, hopefully most people brush their teeth in the morning, right? Or they definitely get their cup of coffee or whatever they want to drink. Nobody has to work really hard to develop that. I mean, we probably developed it much younger. And now since we do it every single day, it's just a part of our identity. It's just built in. Your brain doesn't make a conscious decision. It's just sort of on the subconscious loop of like automatic. Wake up, brush your teeth, whatever, go get your cup of coffee, that kind of thing. So I recommend you sneak in sitting in front of your DAW right in between all of those sort of pre-established habits, so that now February, March comes in, like you said, Valentine's Day, it's just what we do. And we don't have to have motivation, and we don't have to, we don't have writer's block. I also love what you said there about stopping midway. I have never thought about that with music. I think that is a great idea and boy, it probably takes I would imagine a lot of discipline to be able to stop in the middle of a project that you're excited about, and you're like, I'm in the flow and things are working, but boy, a lot of discipline to realize I'm going to stop here and now I have something to finish. But I do that thing with the gym though. So when I'm in the gym, it's about 30 minutes, 45 minutes. I start to feel that flow, that excitement, that energy, like where you're just getting really, really pumped up on stuff. And that's when I run the hell out of the gym, because I actually want to leave the gym on a high note. I want to leave the gym feeling buzzed, feeling excited, feeling energetic, going, because I went to this building and did this weird stuff, I've got tons of energy now. And I know some people will disagree with that, and they'll say, no, you got to keep working out and get your full pump in. You got to really kind of exhaust yourself and blah, blah, blah. And I've just found that when I do that, when I go to the full end of the extreme and I have nothing left to give, I'm usually more sore, I'm more tired. I actually don't have more energy at the end of the workout. I have less. I feel like I have to now recover more. So I think we all can kind of find our own little cheat codes through these sort of changes in our life. So I agree with you there, and I think you can apply that in different aspects of our life. So really cool, Michael. Good for you, man. Anybody else want to share some goals? Or
I was saying I mostly use New Year's resolutions, not really that. It's more like a way of keeping me accountable. Like now when I go into it, it's just going to be, is this quality over quantity? Just that little bit to keep me accountable.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, we will be starting up our Sync 60 challenge probably in February. And that's the challenge we've done a few years back. We started doing it, and we'll start doing it more consistently. But talking about accountability, Deborah, that's what that is all about. I don't know if you were with us when we started doing those, but it's a 60-day challenge where we all set our own individual goals. But then we have a public accountability database where basically every single week people are encouraged to come in and say yes, mark yes that you achieved your week 1 goal, week 2 goal, all the way to week 8. And then at the very end, obviously, you either got you got an album, or you've accomplished something, or you've learned some new skill, or you've gotten better at mixing. Whatever, you set your own individual goal. There's no goal too small, for sure, as we've been talking about. And then I want to definitely give, raffle off some sort of a. Last time we were doing like an NI Native Instruments keyboard. Well, maybe we'll do that again, or we'll find a cool new prize to raffle off. So just giving you guys a little bit of a carrot, kind of a little excitement at the end of it. But obviously, the big takeaway is you guys being able to achieve these goals, make them manageable, and then realize that like you just have to rinse and repeat that Sync 60 challenge process over and over again in your sync career. That's basically all you're going to do. Some goals will be 48 hours, some goals will be 30 days, some goals will be 2 weeks, but you'll always have this ability now to go, okay, I have to get an album done in 2 months. Let's break this down into smaller sub goals, weekly goals, and let's make sure that we can keep ourselves like on track for this. So that's a really cool thing. So Carlos, welcome, buddy. Do you have any sort of New Year's resolutions or goals for 2023, things that you want to accomplish that you want to share? I think.
What's up, guys? Happy New Year's. Yeah, hell yeah, Jesse, man. I wrote down my year goal and my month goal. So the year goal I got, for the month goal I will wake up at 5 a.m. for 6 days, for 41 days. I'll refrain from alcohol for 31 days. I'll produce 3 tracks, mix and mastered in 31 days. 3 to 4 tracks. I will meditate and train my body 6 days for 31 days. I will read 15 minutes a day for 31 days. I will only... Oh yeah, I scratched that one. But this is for the year one.
Got too ambitious for yourself.
I will have all my credit cards paid. I will have $1,000 in my savings account. I will receive an email or a phone call from Epic Music LA letting me know they got a placement for me. I have affirmation on that one. I will be accepted by 2 music libraries. I will attend Sync Up Event Part 2. I will receive pro feedback 3 times a month. I will post on social media 2 to 3 times a month. Me with a keyboard or me something, just to post a picture, post it and ghost, And then of course I want to become a successful sync licensing producer, and my speech that I write about.
There you go, man.
Yeah, man.
Good for you, buddy. That's a lot. You are very ambitious with your goals for the year. The good thing, though, I did notice something. A lot of those you've kind of been doing already, and sort of getting your feedback and posting and that kind of thing, and being just really active. So, and I know you've been really busy, obviously, making your music. So I think a lot of that stuff you've kind of already developed the kind of wind in your sails. Essentially, you can kind of just keep going with what you're doing. And I do, I'm torn on both sides of your wanting to make sure that you get a placement and you get, sort of access to these opportunities. It's one of those things where I hope that happens for you. Obviously, I'm hoping for you, but I also want to make sure that, like, if that doesn't happen or it comes in a different form, that we kind of keep our eyes open to, other opportunities or maybe just more room for growth. Because I know that in my career, having specific timelines on like, well, I want to get a placement by this date, or I want to get this opportunity, or I know for me, it was like, I would love to have my music on like The Office or like The Simpsons, or, some show that I was a fan of. That to me in the early stages of my career was what I thought of success. And I thought everything else is, yeah, that's kind of nice, but that's really where I'd value myself in terms of, am I really progressing? And what happened as I moved into the industry fairly quickly is that, like, I was getting placements and opportunities thrown at me in ways I never foreseen, I never could guess, even working with companies that I never thought I would work with. So I just want to give that to you as well, is that, like, your goals of wanting to get the placement or wanting to get that kind of opportunity, it may come, it may not come, but just know that there might be other avenues that opened up to you this year. And so if that particular one doesn't happen for you, it definitely does not mean failure. It just means that we can, and I've shared this on my channel so many times, I have no idea which one of my tracks are really the most licensable and useful for clients, right? I'm doing my best, like I'm doing my research, I'm having conversations, all the stuff that I tell you guys to do. But sometimes it's some of the weirdest music I've made or some of the not so amazing music I've made that ends up going into these huge opportunities. So we kind of have to also, I guess what you say is just accept the humility of, we're here to be of use, of service to anybody, anything that could potentially use our music. So I wish you the best with those, man. Keep at it. And I love that you have that. The start of all of those, what I loved was that you put, I will, right? I will. Not that I'm going to try, or this is going to be my effort or whatever. There's definitely a lot of power in that I will. And for all of you guys that are watching, Carlos was at Sync Up, and he was one of the members that stood up and shared with us his affirmations. He actually carries them with him in his wallet, and he says them every day, multiple times a day, and they are affirmations that have definitely helped him replace maybe some of the self-defeating, self-destructive thoughts that we all have. It's not just him. I have them. You have them. Watching this, all of you guys on this call deal with them from time to time. We all deal with self-doubt and, am I really good enough? Do I have enough to offer? And I just always use Carlos as an example of somebody that really took responsibility for his mindset, right? It's not our fault how we think, right? Because our thoughts usually just pop up, and our childhoods were what they were, and we were with, we went to schools and our teachers did the damage or the benefit that they did. So that's all in the past. It's all over with. So it's not our fault that this stuff happened, but now it's our responsibility what we do with our mindset and how we approach basically the daunting task of creating sizable income with sync licensing. Obviously, you guys here know, I think everybody watching this knows, it's simple to understand, but boy, very, very difficult to pull off and to consistently show up. So I love that you've got that just winning mindset and you've taken responsibility. And I do think that for some people, affirmations maybe isn't it. That's totally cool. But whatever you do, just know that if you don't actively, consciously try to steer your thoughts in more productive places, they will just kind of, push you and drift you into darker waters that you probably are going to have to now work twice as hard. It's hard enough, guys, to succeed with sync licensing. If you've got an internal monologue that's telling you you're not good enough, even with Deborah, your tracks aren't perfect enough. You shouldn't submit them yet. They're not perfect, right? These kind of thoughts, that's why, I'm a broken record, I know, but this is why I put Sync Psych, the series of tutorials in Sync Academy, on the very top of the list of tutorials I want you guys to get into, because it's the stuff going on between our ears which makes or breaks people's careers in this business. It's not your knowledge. Believe it or not, it's not your music. It's not your mixing. It's not your mastering. It's not your DAW. It's not your samples. It's none of that stuff. It's literally, what are those, interesting, exciting, sometimes horrible thoughts going on between your ears that are either getting in your way and really stopping your progress and making you feel like you shouldn't go on, or when you get into some situations where it's really tricky and stressful, you just decide to throw in a towel and give up or not make music for a couple of months. Or do you accept that this is a challenging endeavor? This is sort of like you are on a hero's journey right now, and every hero gets crap thrown at them. Every hero falls down a cliff. Every hero gets beat up a couple of times throughout the movie or throughout the story, right? So it's all about overcoming the second act, which is like the darkest part of it, into that third act, the triumphant act, where you actually go on and achieve what you want to do. And that's really what I think makes or breaks most people's careers in this business. So good for you, Carlos, man. I wish you all the best with that. And hopefully we can help you with those goals, with everything you guys are doing here. So anybody else want to share, jump in with their 2024 ambitions?
Sure, I can say a few things.
Go ahead, Troy.
Good morning and Happy New Year's, everyone. So for me, when I hear about the New Year's resolutions, it's a reminder to myself that I do it a little bit different. So it's kind of a retrospective study. I'll look back at the past year, and I keep a list of all the projects I've worked on and things like that. And I kind of do a self-grading. What worked, what didn't work, how did I feel after the project? Did it take it to another job? Work begets work usually. And so if those work, that's what I put a little star by. And then if it's with a library or a production company or somebody I worked with, I can see if they have available work for the next year. And since I already had a foot in there, if it worked, then they're more likely to include me on their next project. So it's more of a mindset of finding the things that worked and focusing on that and saying, why did they work? And seeing where I can focus on. If they didn't work, or if a project fell through or so on, I'll go back and I'll kind of analyze any emails that were involved, any correspondence, and say, could I have approached this differently? What was it that they didn't like? If there were, there's usually, you got to make variations or cut downs or so on, and if they didn't accept those, or if they didn't like the mix, did they make a specific comment about that? And then I put that in my column of things to work on for the year, and I put a little sticky note on my monitor, reminder, drop 50, below 50 hertz or whatever on this thing, and that's kind of what I remind myself. Now, after about 3 months, I'm not looking at those sticky notes anymore because they've become just part of the process. So even if on those fails, I'm still gaining something from them and learning in the process. And even if it's like 1%, like you mentioned in your video this morning, 1% is still growth. And 1% is, in my experience, it comes in leaps and bounds, and sometimes it's 50%, sometimes it's 2%, but it's still advancement, it's still growth. You're improving your skills and your abilities, and maybe your relationships with different production companies and things like that. And also too, the things that work, I have a short list with the different groups, and it's a reminder like, hey, I haven't heard from them in 3 months. I should probably reach out. What can I do for you? I'm available. Do you have anything down the pipe that I can maybe prep for? And sometimes they'll say no, but we'll keep you on the list. And you're kind of always in their ear a little bit, but not being annoying by doing that, like every 3 months. And that's kind of how I look at it. I don't necessarily say I got to have this project done or I'm going to want to do this thing, but I think some of that is revealed in itself, because if you keep yourself fairly, not super busy, but constantly working on a project, other things start to reveal themselves. And one thing I learned, I'll share with you, is last year I had a point where I was working on 4 different projects at the same time, and I thought that the timing would work out. And of course, Murphy's Law, everything had to be done on this particular day, all 4 of them. And so I lost a lot of sleep during that time. And I think, when I look back on it, some of the quality probably could have been better. And I just would not recommend working on multiple projects at the same time, especially if they're, higher profile and you want to maintain those good relationships. So that would be what I would recommend.
Absolutely. There's so many nuggets of wisdom you shared there, man. The biggest thing that I think you understand, I want everybody to take from what you just shared, Troy, is you're creating a system of success. You're not shooting for individual goals. This is kind of maybe a better way of explaining what I was trying to talk to Carlos about, because Carlos had a lot of specific goals, right? And again, I don't want to, if it helps people get motivated, I am not going to tell people to not do that. Do it, whatever works for you, right? Different strokes, different folks. But for me, and I'm more on the side with Troy on this, is I want to create excellence as a habit, right? So just doing things that, like Troy said, getting a little bit better every single week, every single month, having a reminder system to keep myself in the mind of the people that I want to remind that I exist and that I could potentially be useful for them. And just as Troy said, he wants to basically just create daily habits, essentially, that will eventually collect him new opportunities. That's kind of how I see it. It's basically like he's casting a wide net into the sync licensing industry with all these habits that he's putting together. So rather than having an individual fishing pole to say, I want to get this opportunity, I want to work with that company, or I want to get this kind of thing, he's creating a sort of system, a daily system that's not necessarily, it's not a goal, it's just a way of life. It's a way of him behaving and a way of him handling his business, so that as time goes on, more and more opportunities can land in his lap. And so he can handle them better. He'll be more available to them. He'll be more present to the people that can offer them. So I do second that. I do think that is the way to essentially, especially with sync licensing, maybe for many endeavors as well, because you just don't know. We don't know. I didn't think that I was a great, I definitely know I'm not a great Latin music producer. That's not something that I think about myself as. I'm not a Latin producer, but one of the tracks that I put together for a Major League Sports licensing opportunity, I put together quite a few tracks. The favorite one from the client was my Latin hip hop track. Why? No clue. It wasn't my favorite. I didn't think it was that good, but they were like, this is exactly what we want. Perfect. We're throwing this all over the place. So if I had been sort of, no, I'm a rock producer and I only want to get this kind of music, or I only want to work with these kind of opportunities, I wouldn't have known necessarily where the industry values me. So it's like a two-way street. We want to be useful for the industry, and so we're doing our best to make that best guess for our strengths. But sometimes the industry just throws something at you. It's a total curveball, and it's like, really? That's what you think I'm really valuable for? Okay. And then it's about, changing your mindset and going, cool, I've just found a little opening, a little niche for myself. Let's exploit it. Let's keep going. Let's use my system to basically gather as much of that opportunity for myself as I possibly can. And that's really what luck is. I think a lot of people think that, I still once in a while get that accusation hurled at me, like, Jesse, you just got lucky. I'm like, okay, there's definitely some luck for sure, but luck only happens to those that are just consistently showing up and have a system like Troy's, where if opportunities are around from the people that you've created these personal relationships with, they get thrown at you. And so you could say, yeah, you got lucky, but boy, how many months or years were you sitting around or hanging in there or just kind of being persistent before the luck found you, right? It wasn't like you were just walking down the street and somebody threw a licensing opportunity and hit you in the head. Obviously, you were basically in the right circles, in the right relationships, and obviously conducting yourself as a professional so that people could trust you with an opportunity and throw it to you and give you the quote unquote luck. So it's definitely a great reframe, Troy. Everything you were saying there, really, really good stuff there. And of course, I loved how you said reframing your quote unquote fails. They're not fails, but just reframing the things that didn't work out how you would plan them to work out as, well, I still learned, so it's still a win in my book. So it was definitely worth the effort. It was worth giving that a shot or submitting to that opportunity or that library. Even I got passed over, might have been humbled a bit, might have stung, but I probably learned something. I probably learned I need to improve something, or maybe this is the wrong fit for me. So you're going to be better prepared moving forward. And I think if you can think of all of the sort of missteps as just learning opportunities, then you never really have to worry about things working out or not working out. You just kind of go into it with an open expectation of this might work out and great, I'll keep going. And if it doesn't, I'm going to at least take something really valuable and get better for it. So either way, you win with that. So that's a really amazing, man. Ben, did you want to say something?
I think my New Year's resolution for this year is to stay consistent and have the good habits and discipline. So set myself a routine. So let's say Monday, I'll do my swimming. Wednesday, I'll do maybe some little strength training. Friday, cardio. And once I get those habits in, it makes me feel good as well, like all the positive dopamine, serotonin, and then hopefully carry those habits over to my music. Yeah, I wrote down 5 albums, that's my target, or 5 EP. Because I do, trailer orchestral, it's a huge project, it's a lot of tracks, so sometimes it might take me like 1-2 weeks, or 3 weeks even to finish a track. It's so huge. I'm just trying to pace myself and just be consistent. Yeah, just the consistency I'm aiming for this year.
It's great goals. Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit there, but I think we got the gist of what you were trying to say there. I would definitely say, I know you were talking about Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and everybody's schedules are different. So I'm not saying you have to follow this advice, but I do think habits require a daily commitment. I'll just be honest about that. I think it's got to happen every single day. But now, I don't think that going to the gym every single day is a way to start that habit. I really don't think so. In fact, that would be probably a guarantee way to fail at making exercise or working out a part of your life. Probably a better way is to say, like, I'm just going to be active every single day in one way or another. Some days I'll go to the gym, some days I'll go for a walk. Some days I'll reorganize the garage. Some days I'll do some yard work. Active just means literally physically moving around, walking, could be running, could be more intense, could be just literally just taking a walk. That's pretty much it. And so every day, if you walk to go, whatever you're going to go do, for me, our mailbox is not next to our house. It's actually down to this mailbox about like a mile from our house. I love it. Actually, in the beginning, I was like, damn, this sucks. I have to walk to go get my mail. But now I'm like, thank God that's there, because that gives me this really great excuse that I got to be active every day. And I could get in my car and drive there. But boy, what a great excuse for me to just go on a nice, mindful walk, maybe listen to some music or a podcast or something and just, get that out there. So I do think, obviously, with physical exercise, just being active every day would be a way to do that. And especially with the music, I would say for you, Ben, have you struggled with, being motivated and not motivated? Is that kind of one of the things that you've struggled with for music?
Is just trying to have that positive self-confidence, not doubting myself, and just pitch my music to libraries and publishers. Yeah.
Got it.
And not letting the tracks, not trying to fix and revise the tracks, a lot of times, and just send it out.
Yep, you and Deborah, same issue right there. It's like waiting and waiting and waiting, like, it's not the best. And it's really just, it's two things. We're obviously, at the primary base of that is something I definitely felt many times in my career. It's just fear of rejection. And every person here, everybody watching this struggles with that. So you're not alone with that. We've all felt, and we still struggle with that. I'm not saying I moved past that in my life. I still struggle with rejection. I still, like, when I send out an invitation to a library CEO, I want you to be a part of Sync Connect, or I want you to be a guest speaker at Sync Up. I'm like, what if they think that I'm not worth their time? What if they say, yeah, no, I don't want anything to do? Like, I still have that feeling as well when I'm trying to go reach out and, make a connection or make a relationship happen. But it is just a part of life, is that sort of like getting out and going like, well, either they're going to say, the worst case, they're just going to say, no thanks. And that's pretty much for you with libraries. The worst case, they're not going to come at you and just destroy you and be hurtful or mean. Like, no, I've never heard of a library ever doing that in the history of our industry. The worst that's going to happen is they're just going to say like, thanks for the submission, not right for us, or they'll just not respond at all. Maybe for some of us, that is even worse than getting a no thanks. But at least you can kind of, here's what I see it. Like, I remember when not to take the talking too much of a depressing place, but I lost my dog and my cat actually earlier this year. And my cat, when we had to put him down, he was just getting really, really sick. I was so scared of that moment because I was like, I've never done that for a pet. When we had pets growing up, my parents always took them to the vet and put them down. Like, never the kids were around that. So I've never been around in front of a pet as you put them down, as I had like a deep emotional connection. I was like, oh my God. And so I'm just dreading it. And if you've ever had to put a pet down, usually you have to wait like a day or two before you can get the appointment. So you're sitting there going like, okay, well, this is the last day. This is the last meal. This is, it's horrible. It's hell. And I remember going through that. And when we finally got through it, put them down, obviously extremely sad, very depressing. At the end of it, I actually did finally get a sense of relief of like, very dark, very tough to get through, but now I can say I've gone through it. And now I've gone through what that feels like, and now I know. And then it was a couple months later, we had to put our dog down, and I was much more prepared for that because I was like, oh, at least I've kind of been through it before. I know what to expect, and it was much more manageable. It didn't feel as out of control. And so I think the same thing can happen with you and submitting to a library. In some ways, I think you need to get ignored and or rejected by a couple of libraries because it's almost like you need to get that out of your system to realize, all right, that stung. That's not what I wanted to happen, but BFD, right? Big deal. It happens. Yeah, okay, I'm going to move on. Just that wasn't the right one, or maybe not the right time, right? I've had that happen. Many of our students, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months down the road, they come back like, hey, so sorry, we saw your submission. We were just a little bit busy. Are you still available to work? Can you give us some new music? You never know where these opportunities are going to come. So it's almost like for you, it's kind of like you got to just rip that Band-Aid off. Just throw it out, maybe just one or two, and just kind of just expect, okay, even though I'll put that in your head, like I probably won't get accepted first time out because most people don't. I'll be honest with you. Most people don't the first time. It's possible for sure. But just kind of have that expectation like, probably not. And if I do, I'll be pleasantly surprised. But I'm going to expect that this is just more about me getting through this emotional block of getting through this, having this experience and realizing, am I still living? Am I still breathing? Like, is my blood still flowing? Yes, 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 yes. All right. That didn't feel great, but I can get through that. So maybe that's something that can be helpful for you is you kind of just got to rip that Band-Aid off to get to the next stage of this stuff. So hopefully that's helpful for you.
Yeah. Even now, my current publisher, when they send out briefs, it's a hit or miss. It's a lot more rejections than acceptances. And I was also wondering about if your mindset is still the same, Jesse, for pitching albums, how many tracks you need an album for a publisher? Is it still 10 tracks? Or would you say 5 tracks is
It depends on the publisher. Yeah, I've definitely been a little bit more hands-off on saying you have to have a full album. Some libraries, I still think that's the right move because it's a finished product ready to go. But as you guys saw with Sync Up, many of the libraries were like, yeah, just send us your best 3. We just want to kind of hear what you can do. If you got more, we'll work with more. If you don't sell me with 3 tracks, or most likely just 1, if you don't sell, like Troy from McCuban from Alloy Tracks, he was saying, I'd rather have 1 fire trailer track than 300 whatever trailer tracks that I don't think I can get placed. So it kind of depends on who you want to work with. But if you want to do more trailer, probably going to focus on a smaller number of high quality tracks. If you're doing for more reality TV show, minimal tension cues, that kind of thing, probably want to go for a larger number. So it depends on who you're pitching to, but if it's an album, or I would say if it's a library that does specialize in a lot of quantity placements in terms of a lot of those reality TV shows, I think those are the ones you still want to go for a full 10 tracks for an album. If you're going for more an ad placement company or a trailer house, something like that, like a company like Troy has, yeah, maybe you can go 3, 5, at the most. But make sure that those are extremely strong, the strongest that you feel that you can present, and make sure that really number 1 is the first track that they click on when they hear your tracks. So hopefully that helps answer that.
Got it. Thanks, Jesse.
Well, cool. Thank you so much for sharing, man. Anybody else? Last up, maybe we'll do one more share before we start wrapping this one up.
I have something to ask everybody.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, how you doing, guys? I have a goal this year to try and expedite my writing and arranging and production process, because it's not that I'm not here writing all the time, but I'm a scatterbrain when it comes to it's not that it's hard to focus. It's like squirrel, and then all of a sudden I'm off, trying out different plugins, effects, or so I start sound designing in the middle of the writing process or something, and it's hard for me to lock in for a long period of time. So I'm going to try and focus on that and nail that down, because when we're doing submissions and whatnot for briefs and whatnot, I want to make sure that I'm going to be able to show up immediately and be able to drop on immediately if it's needed, and that right now I can't say I'm 100% there, not to the quality that I would like myself to have. So that's something that I'm definitely going to work on. And if anybody has any ideas about that, feel free to share.
Go ahead, guys.
I got a brief just before Christmas. 22nd. It was due in a week. And I had to
we're not really able to hear you, Ben. I think your audio is really bad there. You want to try one more time?
Oh, is it better now?
I think so. Go ahead, try it again.
Okay, yeah. So I recently received a brief last week on the 22nd, just before Christmas, and it was due in a week. Yeah. So, but on Christmas Day, I was supposed to fly to Chicago, so I only had like 3-4 days to finish the track and just drop something after that. That's my most recent brief experience.
So just short turnarounds. Yep. Does anybody have any suggestions for how Mark can essentially speed up the process, improve his composing, arranging skills?
Having systems that they implemented to like, I mean,
Michael has something for you.
I don't usually use templates, but I'll usually know exactly what instruments I want to use and whatnot. But it's the whole process of, because as I found out from Perry at Epic, is that they have specific ways that they want things to be presented. And in order to do that quickly, it means I have to change my writing style a little bit so that I'm doing those things at the same time as I'm writing, so I don't have to double back and do it as a secondary process. I can try to do it all at once.
But Michael, you had something to share?
I don't know if this will work based on the parameters they give you, but I write backwards. So for context, I do trailer tracks, and I start with the climax, and then I sort of downsize the thematic material for the build-up, and then I downsize further. I mean, how do you know what piano notes to use in the introduction if you don't know what the melody and the climax sounds like?
No, yeah, that makes sense. So it's easier to take away than add, right?
Yeah. So then what that does is you know exactly where you're going because you're reverse engineering your own project. There's no time wasted wondering what to do with this next part. I don't know if that fits with the workflow that you're trying to, but maybe that will help.
With everybody, just a general writing workflow that would work in. Cool, thanks.
Super smart. Go ahead, Troy.
Yeah, I got one. So first of all, if you're working with a specific library and they give you those kinds of parameters, what I've found for me, because I hear what you're saying about Squirrel, when you have to reinvent the wheel, make yourself a template. It is key. You got to have it, because I find that if I recreate every project, I'm like, oh, maybe this VST will sound great, and then I go down that rabbit hole. So just pick your template, stick with it. The second thing, as far as focus, there's something called a Pomodoro technique. It's ancient wisdom stuff, where basically you're setting your focus for 15 minutes. You got like one of those little tomato timers or whatever, egg timer, and you're just on the knob 15 minutes, and then you take a break and walk away for 15 minutes or 30 or whatever. There's different ways to structure it, but I found it's like that laser focus really does keep you. It's kind of like having a boss over here telling you focus, and then you can walk away and take a break. Like it's almost like exercise, and you can train yourself to do that.
I think what happens with me is, instead of getting up and walking away, I'll start opening up other plugins.
Yeah, no, you gotta. And the other thing too is I've recently got a new laptop, and I said, this laptop is only music. There is nothing else on it. It is my DAW, and that's it. Yeah. So there's no other, anything, notifications popping up. I'm not going to click on Google or whatever. It's just my DAW, and it's specifically for music. So,
yeah, I like that.
Focus tools. Yeah.
Boy, isn't that like the theme of our whole world right now, is how do you get rid of distractions? Because it's just like every year there's just a new app, there's a new thing, there's a new, craze that it's just constantly begging us to pay attention to it. And it's like now, in previous generations, you know, we had many other very, very challenging obstacles and things we had to deal with in life. But our generation now, it's like, it seems like it's about restraining ourselves, right? Saying no, because you have unlimited entertainment now. You have unlimited social media. You have unlimited news. You have unlimited everything. And so now, in order to have a healthy, balanced feeling in your soul, is you have to kind of just say no to it, like almost everything. And you have to really zero out all the stuff that you know it's like, well, that's junk food. That's junk food. That's junk food. That's going to kind of feel good for a second, but it's going to leave me feeling empty and drained, and I'm not going to really get where I want to go in life. And it's easier said than done. I'm still trying to figure this stuff out. YouTube is still the bane of my existence. I am a YouTube junkie, and I'm still trying to figure out, how do I get away from this website and this app, because it is so enticing and it's so exciting and it's so interesting that it starts to make the rest of just regular life not seem so interesting. So I'm still trying to struggle with that and figuring out, how do I manage this addiction, because I do want to use some of YouTube, but it's every time I've tried it so many times where I'm like, I'm going to place this limit on myself, or I'm going to do this. Yeah, it sticks for a couple of weeks, and then I go right back to the old behavior. So we are living now in a world where our brains are not adapted for any of this. And there's also people that are on the other end of these apps and these websites and services that are engineering this to keep it as addictive as possible. And they can A/B test stuff on us. They can go, all right, let's send Jesse these videos. Let's see how long he stays on the website today. Okay, let's send him these ones. Oh, he stayed on for another 3%. Let's go ahead and keep going in that direction. They're A/B testing on us, and we have no idea what they're doing. The algorithm is splitting things up. So it's kind of a hopeless endeavor for us to think that we've got the willpower to be able to deal with it. But I think you're right. Something like that, Troy, is like just literally saying no 100% to it for certain parts of your day or certain computers or something like that. I think almost is the only way that we can get around this stuff, is you have to literally off. It has to be off. I don't think we have probably a standing chance of just going, minimal, little notifications, little this, that. I don't know, at least for me. I don't know if I've got it in me to deal with that, so.
Ever on YouTube for, and this consumes 90% of my YouTube watching experience, is I'm hooked on watching mixing and mastering tutorials. I just, even though I know enough to make a good quality production, I still am enticed to go and, this guy's got a technique and this guy's got a technique, and that's usually what drags me off to YouTube.
Yep. And it's tempting because it's like, well, what if that technique's better than mine, right? And I can't afford to miss this tutorial because that plugin or that guy's version of it might actually take my tracks to that next level. And it's like, yeah, that's why I've been trying to be the anti-voice to that, to say, stop. We don't need any more. If you've got, like for you, Mark, and for everybody, if you've got a system that you feel, obviously for you, Mark, you got into a library, you got accepted. So what you're doing is, again, licensable, good enough. You've crossed the bar from struggling amateurish to professional. You've already gotten past that. So now it's just a matter of constantly building upon what you've already got. So occasionally dipping your toes into some education, some tutorials. Obviously, Sync Academy, okay? I definitely know we have a lot of tutorials here, and it can be overwhelming. But I always want to give you guys that assurance to say that is not actually progress, though. Watching tutorials does not get you further in your career. What gets you further in your career is you mastering, mixing, and playing, and creating, and being active in your own DAW. That's actually what progress looks like. Watching endless tutorials is actually a form of procrastination, because it just gets us on the edge of our seat of, maybe one more thing. You don't need one more thing. You've probably got, I bet everybody here has got everything you need to make 10 out of 10 licensable music. I can almost guarantee you, we live in a world now with Logic Pro, $200. Every plugin you need, every mixing plugin, every mastering plugin. In fact, these days, as I'm making more and more, getting back to some production music, almost everything I use, with a few exceptions of maybe some guitar plugins, is built into Logic these days. Like, they've got what you need. You really don't need a million other things. Strings, orchestral stuff, okay, I give you that. You probably need to go a little bit above and beyond for big trailer stuff. I don't know if Logic will get you there, but almost for every other style of music, whether it's rock, hip hop, tension, minimal music, even some great, amazing acoustic music, almost anything you can need these days is within your grasp for $200. I really do think that that's true. So it's just a matter of learning how to use these tools. They're right there. And the next plugin and the next tutorial and the next thing is probably not going to get you there. What's really going to get you there is your own best effort. So that's where I'm going to leave you guys with this one. I really appreciate you guys joining me. It's been a really, really amazing session with you guys here. And this is definitely what my goal for these these Sync Academy Hangouts have been, is for you guys to definitely help each other out, because I definitely love chiming in, but I honestly get sick of hearing my own voice. I don't want to hear my own voice as often, and I really love it when you guys are giving each other feedback and helping to provide this really cool, amazing community, because you guys have amazing insights and suggestions here on this call that I would have never had and never would have given you guys. So there's even way more value and power in us having these really cool calls. So thank you guys for putting yourselves on camera and sharing. I really wish you guys all the best for 2024 and beyond. For those of you that are on YouTube, if you guys want to join us, you can jump into these calls anytime. They are a part of Sync Academy. I'm sure there's a link in the description. You guys can learn more about Sync Academy. But a couple cool things are definitely coming up. As I said, Sync 60 definitely coming back to the platform. So all of you guys stay on the lookout for that. We'll make some announcements in the next couple of weeks. And also licensing opportunities are definitely coming back. So Mike Giannotto of Reverse Play has indicated that he will be putting those licensing opportunities back into the platform. So I'm going to have a conversation with him this week about when we're going to roll that out, how that's going to be rolled out. There will be some restrictions because we want to make sure that those details really stay right on the platform. They need to not be shared anywhere else. And Mike's company does not accept music from unsolicited producers and composers generally. So these opportunities are really your only way to get into a company like Mike's. So we'll definitely let you guys know about those details when they're released. So you guys have a fantastic rest of your first day of 2024. And let's hope this is a start of an amazing, beautiful, productive year for all of you guys. Thank you so much. I was going to talk about the raise in streaming royalties. We don't have time today to do that. Check out my video on Wednesday. I have a whole video dedicated to why I believe there's hope, big 2 thumbs up, hope for streaming royalties to finally start to increase. Maybe not this year, but I think the ground level is being created right now. The bricks are being laid for more income, ad revenue, higher subscription fees coming into the streaming platforms. And I think finally, after all these years of horrible streaming royalties that have been laughable, I think there's a case that I'm going to make on Wednesday for why we can basically be looking forward to more royalties coming forward in the future. At least that's my hope. I really do feel optimistic about it, though. So stay tuned. We'll have some great opportunities and some great insights for you guys with that video. All right, guys. Have a good one. We'll talk to you all soon.